Well, the South African Revenue Service and the Hawks are investigating MTN, Vodacom and Cell C over spying claims. The three cell phone giants are allegedly did provide a local tobacco manufacturer with cell phone records that were apparently used to spy on SARS investigators. Joining us now to share her views on the probe is Cynthia Skuman, Managing Director of the Ethics Monitor. Cynthia, good to have you here in the studio with us. It's a bizarre story, this. It's not British American Tobacco, to kind of clarify that part, but a relatively small independent tobacco or cigarette maker that somehow managed to get cell phone numbers.
I mean, it seems absurd that the three big cell phone companies would in fact supply that sort of information. And I mean, clearly they're all denying it at this stage. But what there does appear to be is a very valid charge in terms of trying to interfere with the activities of the SARS investigators.
And you wouldn't have thought that the private sector, or certainly cell phone companies, would give over this information. Might it just be rogue individuals?
One would certainly hope so. I mean, the legislation around handing this over is very clear and obviously does not permit this sort of thing. So one would hope that it is perhaps just rogue individuals. But for me, the bigger issue of the story is, of course, the huge issue around illicit trading in cigarettes, which, of course, is what is the underpinning issue here.
You've been busy lately, no doubt.
I have.
We're mentioning to Wayne a little bit earlier about the whole outer story. Where, from an ethical perspective, do you stand on that?
Have
you got an e-tag?
No, I don't. No, I don't. And I'm not rushing out to get one anytime soon. I do think that it qualifies as a real ethical dilemma, where one is looking at something, it's not a case of two wrongs or two rights. Where the process is flawed and where the outcome or the process is unjust, I don't think one can claim it to be an ethical issue. And not to be ethical rather than ethical issue. And certainly, I mean, there is huge evidence to show that it has not been a fair and transparent process. And again, arguably, if we live in a democracy, what happened to the will of the people? I think that got a little lost in the pursuit of something else.
And the will of the people, as far as Nkandla is concerned, we're a business channel, so we haven't really been focusing our attention on it. But my goodness, the country is talking about it. Huge,
huge. And I know one can get into the technicalities of should that report have been released or shouldn't it. But for me, the biggest ethical issue there is that we've got the sort of number one citizen of the country having, what is it now called, creeping costs around swimming pools as a security feature. I mean, this is new in anyone's language. And while, granted, it is a provisional report that is out there at the moment, and it could change, there really appears to be a huge amount of evidence that is showing that the spending was personal and yet was funded by taxpayers' money, and that is unethical. But as I say, the biggest issue is that when we have unethical behavior so blatantly exercised by our number one citizen, I'm afraid it sends a really shocking message, and it almost leads to sort of lowest common denominator behavior. Well, if he can do it, and that's a tough issue to push back against and try and create appropriate moral choices.
And he too was the man, remember, who drove the moral regeneration of South Africa.
There was that brilliant cartoon around it that I still have. Yes, it's irony is an understatement.
Cynthia Skuman, the Managing Director of the Ethics Monitor.